Hello and welcome to Unacademy. I welcome you all to this session. This is the third session of our high yielding areas, and we now move to art and culture after Buddhism and Jainism. Now, when we talk about temple architecture, it is an important area both from prelims and mains perspective because you can get statement based questions in prelims, even terminologies. At the same point of time, mains you can get iconography, evolution, and understanding, and the differentiation between Nagara, Dravida, and Vesara. So, before we begin, remember that the 17,999 plus 12 months extension offer is going to end tonight. It is important that you use this opportunity to get 50% discount plus also extension. You have to use the code IAS English to unlock all of these prices, and the offer is going to end tonight. So I hope that you are going to become a part of our family through this offer itself. Now, when we talk about temple architecture, there are 4 to 5 things which you have to understand. First is called the 5 stages of temple development. Then basic components of temples. Then what is Nagara style, what is Dravida style, and what is Vesara style. If we understand these, you can say 4 to 5 styles properly, then we can easily actually answer any of the questions in the examination. It is very easy for us to answer it through the terminologies and even write the answer or write the evolution in that regard. So let's first discuss what is called the 5 stages of temple development. Now, before I show you these concepts, see what makes a temple. The basic is what is called as the Garbhagriha, the sanctum sanctorum in which the god is there. Then you have the Shikhara, the Garbhagriha. Along with that, the Amalaka and the Kalash, which is Amalaka and the Kalash, which are the crowning element itself. Then we have what is called as the Mandap, which is the congregation hall. And then we have something called the Ardha Mandap, which is equally important, which is the entry. These are considered to be the basic components of temple architecture. However, they did not emerge automatically. There was an evolutionary process, and that evolutionary process happens in 5 stages. In the first stage, what develops is the Garbhagriha, but with very shallow mandap, no shikhar. Then in the second stage, what happens is that we get something called the mandap and Garbhagriha, 2 things which were already there, but now on a raised platform. Then in the third stage, what is going to happen is, this is the basic overview of this. You will have the Garbhagriha, you will also have the Mandapa. Now Shikhar develops, a very important feature, and raised platform was already there. But in the third phase, we also get something called Panchayatana. Panchayatana means that there are subsidiary shrines other than the main Garbhagriha. Then fourth is called as that the Garbhagriha becomes rectangular rather than square, and in the fifth phase you get a circular Garbhagriha. Therefore, these are the 5 major stages of temple architecture. Let's talk about the examples and how it develops. See, you have Garbhagriha, you have very shallow mandap, very shallow pillars. Temple 17 at Sachi is an example of first stage, flat roof, very important. Then stage 2, you get a raised platform, mandap, and the concept of Garbhagriha already there. Example is Parvati Temple in Madhya Pradesh. Then third stage, most important. We get Shikhar also, raised platform already there. We have the Garbhagriha, we have the Mandap also. Along with that, we get Panchayatana, which is the concept of having subsidiary deities. We could have one deity here, then multiple deities around, and together we have what is called as the Panchayatana design. Dasavatar Temple, Deoghar, a very good example of this. Then fourth and fifth is basically show off, which is you will get a rectangular Garbhagriha, which is at Ter Temple in Sholapur, and in the Manyar Mutt in Rajgir, you get a circular Garbhagriha. Now, these 5 stages all mostly map to the Gupta post-Gupta period with the rise of Bhagavatism, and the iconography starts to evolve. What we see is that now we get the basic and the standard features of what is called as temple architecture. This is not specific to north or south, but a generic temple. From Garbhagriha Mandap to raised platform, to Shikhar, to Panchayatana, to rectangular, to what is called as circular, we get what is called as the generic features of a temple, which is Shikhar, Mandap, Ardha Mandap, evolution of the Mandap itself, the entry, and thereafter Amalaka Kalash will later come and top the Shikhar itself with the Garbhagriha. This is basically, these are called the generic designs, generic concept of what is called as temple architecture. Now, when we talk about different kinds of shrines, there are 3 terminologies which are used: Sandhara, Nirandhara, Sarvobhadra. Meaning, how do you go around the Garbhagriha is decided by this. Basically, with Pradakshin Path, meaning you can move around; without Pradakshin Path, meaning it is just a Garbhagriha itself. And Sarvobhadra is that you can access the Garbhagriha from all directions. So now these terminologies and these terms become important for us. So what we have learned is that from Gupta period onwards, there is a 5-step development of temple architecture in North India specifically, which in turn leads to the basic features of a temple. And with the use of these terminologies, along with what is called as the basic features of temple, now temple design has become more and more common. Iconography has become more and more common. It is now evolving to become what it will become in regional styles. And that is where our first regional style comes through, which is called as Nagara Architecture. Nagara Architecture refers to the temple architecture which happened in North India. And what we have learned as generic features is actually the features of Nagara only. But let's summarize what is Nagara style of temple architecture. Okay. Now, you obviously have the Garbhagriha. That does not change. You have the Shikhar. You also have the Amalaka. Along with that, you have the Kalasha. This becomes your basic Garbhagriha. Then you have the Shikhara. Then you have the Amalaka. And then you have the Kalash. Then we get again the feature which had already evolved, what is called as the Mandapa. Along with the Mandap, we also have the Ardha Mandap. The Ardha Mandap. And this whole structure is actually on a raised platform. This is very, very important. This is called the basic feature. This is a raised platform. There are also small shikhars on the Amalak and the Kalash, rather on the Mandap and the Ardha Mandap. These are called as Uri Shikhars. This is called Ardha Mandap. This is called as Mandapa. This is called as Pitha or Jagati, based on the resource you are, or based on the source which you are referring to, because these 2 words are mostly used. There is Amalak Kalash on the Uri Shikhars also. And what is important is Panchayatana design Panchayatan design is standard to Nagara, but with clusterization. What does clusterization mean? That a lot of these shikhars are actually clustered together when there are multiple shrines. This is a very interesting feature of Nagara. There is no boundary wall, no boundary wall. There is no water tank. At the same point of time, no, you can say, or the iconography is pleasing, meaning you get Ganga, Yamuna, you get pleasing images of Yaksha, Yakshi in the Garbhagriha and at the entry point. So you have no boundary wall, no water tank, iconography is pleasing, and no entry gate also. No entry gate also. So Nagara, these are the features which together make any temple a Nagara style. Amalak, Kalash, Shikhar, Garbhagriha, Mandap, Pitha or Jagati, then no boundary wall, Ardha Mandap, Puri Shikhar, Panchayatan with clusterization, then we have no water tank, and then we have the concept of pleasing iconography with no entry gate. This you will see in most cases in all the temples in Nagara. There are exceptions also in Nagara, but if we talk about Nagara style, we have Kalash, Amalak, Shikhar, Garbhagriha, steps to go up because it is on a pitha or platform. Panchayatan, where there are multiple shrines along with the same one, but there will be clusterization. This is how a Nagara style temple actually looks like. You will have clusters of Uri Shikhars and Shikhars together. Alak, Amalak, Kalash, Shikhar, Uri Shikhar, Mahamandap, Mandap, Ardhamandap, Jagati or Pitha. Pradakshina Path is the way you go inside the temple itself. And there's one term which is written, which is called as Antarala or Antartala, which is where the Garbhagriha meets the Mandap. That is called Antarala. So this point where the Mandap and the Garbhagriha meet, it is called as the concept of Antarala or Antartala. These are the terminologies which you can expect in prelims. And if you're writing in the mains examination, you would be expected to make something like this in the corner. It is important that you make it in the corner, not in the middle, and also do all the legends as shown here. Now, Nagara style is also diverse, meaning Nagara style can be divided according to two. One is Shikhar and according to region. Now, according to Shikhar, you have something called Latina, Pamsana, Valabhi. Then you have for region Odisha, the Khajuraho School, also known as Chandela School, and the Solanki School. So three here, three here. Now, this is where students get confused, and you should know the exceptions and how Nagara is diverse. Now, when we talk about Nagara Shikhar, the first is called as the Latina or Rekha Dyul. Now, Rekha Prasada, Rekha Dyul. Now you see that the curve is inwards and you get a convex shape according to what you are seeing. If you're looking from the outside, it is convex. It has a square base and it is quite tall that way. This is called a Latina or Rekha Prasad. At the same point of time, you have something called the Pamsana. When we talk about Pamsana, it is broader base and it has a concave shape and it is stepped, meaning it will be shorter and it will be stepped, it will be gentler. So these two Latina and Pamsana can be used in the same temple. For example, in Ring Raja temple, you find Latina and Pamsana both. but one used for the Mandap, one used for the Garbhagriha. And the third form is called as the Valabhi. Valabhi is basically when the base of the Shikhar is a square, rather a rectangle, sorry. When it is a rectangle, meaning when you get a certain rectangular base, then you get what is called as vaulted chamber, vaulted chambers. And these vaulted chambers, as you can see here, basically make the Shikhar very short but very broad in that regard. So when we talk about Latina, we talk about sharp curves, curvy linearity. When we talk about Famsana, we talk about outward curve, concave, shorter, broader. When we talk about Valabhi, we talk about rectangular base with vaulted chamber. So now any of these two can be used together. Even all three can be used. It is totally on the architect what they are trying to represent, what they are using. Nagara style Shikhar, I hope it is clear. So what we've learned till this point is 5 stages of development, basic features of a temple, further what is Nagara style, and within Nagara style we have identified 12 features, and then within Nagara style we've also understood how does it vary according to Shikhar. Then if we move to regions, then the first one is called the Odisha School. You will see this design both in the Lingaraja temple and the Sun temple. And here 2 to 3 changes makes it an exception or a regional style. Firstly, the exterior walls are lavishly decorated, but interior walls aren't. There is a pillarless, you can say, Garbhagriha because of using of iron girders. They have very good load bearing. But the two most important concepts, Rekhadul and Jagmohan. Rekha Prasada is a word used for Latina. Rekhadules is a word play on Rekha Prasada, and the Shikhars in Odisha school is called as Rekhadul, and the Mandap in Odisha school is called as Jagmohan. The ground plan is mostly square, and they also have a boundary wall. This is a very important point. They also have a boundary wall. So now there are 3 exceptions here. First in terminology, Rekhadul. Second, Mandap is called Jagmohan. And third is called boundary wall. That is why it is called Odisha School. So you can see this is the temple at Sun Temple at Konark. And you can see you have the Latina here. You have the Famsana here. You have the Mandap. You have the boundary wall also. And you have the Jagmohan along with Rekhadul, and a very beautiful design which was made. This is what is called as Odisha School. Now, this is Lingaraja temple, and you can see again the use of both Famsana and Latina together. That way is very beautiful temples. This is what you need to know. Now, the second school is called as Khajuraho. The best example of Nagara is Khajuraho only. You will find that image which I showed you was also the Khajuraho temple. You will get the concept of Shikhar, Amalaka, Kalash, subsidiary shrines on different areas, Uri Shikhar, Pitha, you can say Pardakshin Pad, Antrala, everything you will get. But what makes it an exception is the thematic. An erotic theme is picked up from Vatasana's Kama Sutra, and that is why Chandela art, the rulers who actually made these temples in MP and in different parts of Khajuraho, basically had a different thing in their mind. And though the overall design is Nagara, the decorative pattern is erotic, and therefore it becomes an exception. Lavish exterior interior decorations. Temple, you have 3 chambers, Garbhagriha, Mandapa, Mandap. We know that north and south facing. All the features which we call as Nagara are there. Even Jain temples which were made in this sector followed a Nagara style design in that regard. But the thematic there is Jain, Mahavira. Here it is erotic. Very interesting that way. But the best example of Nagara. Then, third is called as Solanki School. Solanki School has a lot of, you can say, differentiations, lot of exceptions. The Gujarat sector is where they are actually there in. So, the Gujarat sector, Solanki rulers, temples are, walls are devoid of carvings mostly, but when there is carving, it is very intricate carving based on sun god. Sun temples are very common here, the sun temple and Moderna. Garbhagriha is connected to the mandap externally, internally both, decorated with gateways. Now, this is the first exception. They are called toran, taken from Buddhist architecture. Then you get also lot of water tanks, which are basically called as Suryakunds, and mostly made out of sandstone or black basaltic rock. Mostly sun temples, Moderna sun temple, Bhima one is an example of this. Now, this is where you get a new design and concept altogether. They look like Nagara style temples. They have structures also Nagara style temples, but the way they made stepwells, the way they decorated, the way the whole structure was made is exceptional. That is why it is Solanki. So, Solanki school now becomes the last variation in Nagara. So, if we go back to our list where we had mapped the differentiation, Odisha school, what you have to remember is Rekhadyul, you have to remember Jagmohan, and you have to remember it has a boundary wall. Khajuraho, the theme is different, everything else is perfectly fine. Solanki, you get Torna as the entry gateway, you get Suryakund as water tanks, you also get sun temples with, you can say, boundary wall also, entry gate also, and the concept of water tank. All three exceptions are there and mostly very beautifully decorated. So Nagara style, as you can see, is complicated also. It has a lot of contours also, important diagrams. Then, when we move to Dravida, see, the origin of Dravida is in Pallavan architecture. When you map Pallavan architecture, you have three phases. One is called as Mahendravarman series, which is rock cut early part, wherein you get mandaps. The word mandap here is used for the early temples rock cut. Then you get Narasimhavarman 1 Mamala, after which Mahabalipuram is named, and here you still get rock cut, but this is the highest point of rock cut in the form of Panchayatana. And then you get Narasimhavarman 2 Rajsimha, and Rajsimha is the one who developed the Shore Temple, which is the example of the earliest form of Dravida architecture. So therefore, what you will see is the Mahendravarman series is just rock cut temples made into the rocks itself. Thereafter, if you move ahead, then you have the pinnacle of rock cut architecture at Mahabalipuram in the form of the Pancharats, which is made by Narasimhavarman 1 Mamla, and this is basically where you can see the features and the decorative designs are coming, but they will also realize that there are a lot of problems in making rock cut temples because they can crack, they can break. So when we reach to the Shore Temple, which is the best example of the first form of Dravida architecture, by this point of time, now the temple architecture had entered into a distinct Dravida phase, and by Nandivarman, it will be properly established also. Now, what is Dravida architecture and what is the features of Dravida architecture? Equally important. Now, when we talk about Dravida architecture, obviously Garbhagriha is there. That does not change. The word Shikhar is now replaced by the word called Vimana. Vimana is the word which is given to the curvilinear or stepped tower, stepped tower, which is there, and the topmost point of the Vimana is called Shikhar. So you can see how the terminologies have changed. Shikhar means the topmost point of the Vimana, and Garbhagriha means the same, which is the sanctum sanctorum. Now, the next major concept which emerges is, see, you have the same mandap, nothing changes there. There is the Mandap, that is also there, no issues whatsoever, no, nothing changes there also. So we have Mandap, we have Ardh Mandap, but very important concept, there is no raised platform. No raised platform like Pitha and Jagat, it is not there. Then the whole temple is enclosed in a boundary wall, meaning boundary wall is a must in Dravida temples. But what is even more interesting is this boundary wall has a entry gate which is equally majestic, which is called as the Gopuram. This is called the Gopuram. So we have now Shikhar, Vimana, Garbhagriha, boundary wall, Gopuram, Ardhamandap, Mandap, and then we also have a water tank. We also have Panchayatan, but Panchayatan there is no clusterization. No clusterization means that the Vimanas are separate. And more than that, the deity is mostly in the oldest part of the temple, so the smallest Vimana. On the other hand, in Nagara style, the deity is always in the under the highest Shikhar. So there's again a reversal here. And when we talk about iconography, in iconography fashion, we also have what is called as fierce imagery. Fierce imagery because temples had what is called as Dwarpals, and because temples were a place of economic political power, both the fierce imagery is to project power. So Dravida, as you can see, is much more diverse and much more, you can say, not that distinct, but has a lot of distinct features. 7, 8, 9, then you have 10, then you have 11, and then you have 12. So again, 12 features there, 12 features here. This is basically what a Dravida style temple is known for. You have to make this again in the corner of the answer, and this is what is important. So when we talk about Dravida, Gopuram, Mandapa, Ardhamandapa, Garbhagriha, Vimana, Shikhar, a very big boundary wall around it, and Gopuram is the entry gate. Water tank will always be there. Panchayatan will be there, but with no clusterization. That is what makes and the Dravida style standard. There is something further which happens in Dravida style. You will also start to get what is called as the parakramas, which are the big corridors which are there. And this is a Gopuram, fierce imagery here. Gopuram, Vimana, and small Viman, big Viman. Vimans can be in different sizes. And when you reach the Chola period, you start to get, this is Brihadeshwara temple, you start to get monumental Vimans with shikhars. There is both a vertical and horizontal elaboration. As tall it is equally horizontally big. The Cholas will take it to the zenith, add prakrams, which is very big corridors in and around the temples itself. And also what you will see is that temple architecture will include even sculpture. The sculptural art has reached to its highest point. Fierce imagery power is projected from most of these temples in that regard. The Vijayanagara Empire is going to mix temple architecture with Indo-Islamic design, and thereafter it will start to exhibit even dome and arch structures which were there in Indo-Islamic design. Now, there are also certain divisions based on shape in Dravida. You can learn the terms here which are very, very important. So you have these following terms which you can learn so as to be attributed to what type of subdivision happens according to the shape of the temple itself. And that is why these terms become important for prelims equal. Now, in central India, so North India we have Nagara, in South India we have Dravida, in central India, which would be marked by the Chalukyas, then the Rajputas, and even the Hoysalas and the Kakatiyas who are in central India, we have the Vesara style. Vesara style is a hybrid style. It has the designs and structures of the Nagara plus the decoration of the Dravida. The best example of Vesara, which is a hybrid style, are what is called the recently added UNESCO temples of Hoysaleshwara Temple, Chennakeshwara Temple, and the Keswa Temple, which are called the Hoysaleshwara Temple assemblage. And there are certain things which are associated. But even the Kalasha Temple, which is there in Ellora, starts to exhibit the features of Vesara because they have been made by the Rajputas. There is, for example, Vimana type structure, but which looks like a Shikhar. The designs itself, the decorative patterns itself are more and more, you can say, looking towards Dravida. So the designs and the decorative patterns will be more Dravida. Design of the basic, you can say, elements will be more Nagara. This you can see at the Hoysaleshwara temple. As you can see, the structure looks like a Shikhar of North India, but the decorative pattern is Dravida. Again, Amalaka Kalash type design is given. Black basaltic rock. This is very, very important. The zigzag design. This is called as Jagati. Jagati, when used in the context of Vesara, is very specific, very short platforms. You have zigzag design, Jagati, stellate plan, which is a starlight plan, and you have black basaltic rock, very beautiful sculpture, but the decorative pattern, how the iconography is Dravida, structures are Nagara. That is what makes this whole concept so interesting. So with this we have understood the 5 stages of development, the generic features, the Nagara style, the Dravida style, the Vesara style, under Nagara Shikhar differentiation, regional differentiation. Now what we will be doing is, in the next session we'll move to modern India, but I am planning one thing which is based on these sessions. In the special sessions, which are the free sessions which happen on the Unacademy platform, I will be holding quizzes. You have to give me consent for this in the chat section, that is, it's a good idea, we can do it. For example, we've done Buddhism, Jainism, temple architecture. I will hold quizzes based on these sessions for Buddhism, Jainism, and for temple architecture. 3 different quizzes, 10 to 15 questions, so that you can revise these concepts with me. If you agree and if you think it's a good idea, I will then push the links into my Telegram channel, from where then you can subscribe and further just enroll into it. It's a free session, special session, and you can then sit with me for 1 hour. We can revise also, we can practice the questions also. So with this, I would like to end the session. Thank you. Take care. I will see you in the next session. Bye-bye.